Someone asked me what part of writing do I always start with. So let me confess something. I never, and I mean never, start with the full outline. My brain would literally riot if I did that. I used to just, my ideas all come to me from dreams I had. So I would just get up and loosely write it down. And then when I got ready to actually sit down and write, I would write a very loose plot summary and just sit down and start writing. I have gotten a little bit better and more organized or structured than that since then because I'm writing right now. I'm actually just about to start my 11th book. So, here's what happens. Once I have the idea, it usually comes from a dream. Although many of the last Safe House series have come, just from my head that came to me. As I was writing one book, I'd come up with the idea for the next book. But once I had that idea, the spark, the what if, the very first thing I do is a plot summary. It's very simple. It's a loose, kind of a messy paragraph. I might just brainstorm a lot of ideas that I have about scenes, about characters, about the outcome that I want to happen in that story. So just a few kind of quick questions I might ask myself, like, what is the story actually about? What is the plot? And in the Safe House series that I'm writing, it's about the firm, which is a secret government agency, and each book zeroes in on one of the operatives of the firm. So, with that book, I might say, what is this book about? And I wanted each book in the series to be completely different from the others because I personally read a lot of series, and I know you have too, where you read the first one and you love it, and you can't wait to get to the second one. But then when you're reading the second one, you're like, this is very much like the first one. And then you read the third one, you're like, you almost kind of start feeling like it's the same story or very, very loosely the same story. So I wanted to make sure I didn't do that with this series. So every book is literally very, very different. Very, very different plot, very, very different characters. They all are connected through the firm. The firm is the name of the government agency, but they're different characters with different personalities, different physical attributes, different backgrounds, and they're on different missions. So each book is very, very different. So that's the first thing I ask myself: what is this story going to actually be about? And once I can answer that, which normally is, kind of already loosely there, but I'll tweak out, flesh out some of the more ideas I have. Then the next thing I do is, what disaster am I about to put them through? Because let's face it, especially with a romantic suspense series, there's got to be a little action because a romance book, that's actually a little bit easier to write. I've written a couple of those too. There's still got to be some action. Even in a regular romance book, there's got to be some kind of action. You don't want people just staring into each other's eyes the whole time. So in this series, I'm patting one of the books I have on my desk. In this series, there has to be disasters. There has to be a reason or a motivation to make these characters change or move or maybe be stuck together. The second book in this series, The Last Lie, the characters were not falling in love immediately. They did have a one night stand. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here or not, but that threw them together initially, but then they were separated and they didn't come back together until after the meat of the story got in. And so I needed something for them, some disaster to throw them together. So I don't want to do any spoiler alert, so I'll let you read it. But as I'm looking at the book and the plot summary, I'll think to myself, what disaster, what motivation, what circumstance can be thrown at them that will cause them or force them to be together to help them to fall in love. After I get that figured out, then, and I'm looking at notes, but the third thing I might ask is, how do they crawl out of it emotionally destroyed or better for it? Normally, things I found in life, it's kind of like housekeeping. It always gets worse before it gets better. So if you're in the middle of a situation and things make a turn for the worse, then you know it's going to get better soon. So in a book with that arc that we're all familiar with, we start with their normal life, some disaster happens, they have to figure out how to get out of it, and then, in my book, they all come to a happily ever after. I truly believe in a happily ever after. Life has so few of them, and so I like to make sure that I have them in my books. So, what emotional hole did they fall into or get thrown into or forced into from the disaster that I came up with that might be redemption for them or a learning curve for them, or maybe they had their wall up and couldn't fall in love and they had to have that wall torn down. It's probably 100,000 different things that we can do. Once I have that, though, that is my soft outline. And so I actually like to do this over a period of time, whether it's a few weeks, that would be very minimal for me. Normally, I will I relate it to pregnancy because when I have the idea, to me, that's like conception. And then I will think on it. It may be months, and some books I've had in me for years before I actually sat down and started writing them. So that's kind of like pregnancy to me. I'm nurturing it, I'm thinking of it, I'm babying it, I'm painting the nursery, to use that analogy. And then when I sit down to actually write the book, that's when I consider that I have birthed the book. And this analogy has worked great for me in the 15 years that I've been writing professionally. So once I had that soft outline, that's me being pregnant with this idea. And so I will maybe see something at the grocery store and I'm like, oh, that would make a great scene. Or maybe I'm watching TV. I don't know if you do this as a writer, but sometimes when I'm watching TV or reading someone else's story, I'll think, oh man, they should have had them do, whatever. And I'll think of a different way that they should have gone with that particular scene. And then I thought, well, you know what, I could do that in my book because it's so different from where they went with their scene. But I think I would like to write that in my book, but go in a different direction with a different scene, or twist it a little bit some way. So it is still original, it's still creative. But I just kind of collect all these ideas, and sometimes I'll write them down, especially if it's in the middle of the night. If I have a dream and I wake up and I'm like, oh, that'd be great in this book, I'll jot down at least enough notes in my phone or on a bedside table notebook to remind me in the morning of what that dream was, because I found I will forget it, especially in the middle of the night with dreams. I will forget them. So I'll write them down. I kind of start these little notebooks, and I've shown y'all this before. This is the one for the last Safe House series, and it's big and thick because I'm writing 5 books in this series. Normally I have a smaller notebook for just a single book. But anyway, I'll collect all these ideas and thoughts, and sometimes things will just come to me and I will jot all that down. But when I actually get ready to sit down and write the book, like I'm about to do for book 4 in the last Safe House series, I haven't written one word of it yet. But what I did do a couple of weeks ago, actually, was I looked at my plot summary, I looked at my various kind of crazy notes that I've taken over the last couple of months as I've been mulling this idea of what the next book in the series would be like. And I sit down and get it a little bit more structured. I don't know if you've read, can't even think of the name of it now. I've got the book over there, but I don't want to get up and go get it, about the beat sheets. And so it's basically an arc. If those of you that are literature majors and took that, it's a, I'm going to get up and get the book because I'm going to beat myself up if I can find it and put my hands on it. But it's basically a different way to look at an arc set. Here it is. Save the Cat writes a novel. This is the book. I highly recommend it. It's a great book. I don't follow it point by point, but I do kind of set out beats and do a beat sheet. And I know I'm probably going to get thrown under the bus for this, but I do brainstorm all of my ideas, my plot summaries, my character profiles, everything into ChatGPT. And then I ask her, once she's got all my ideas and all my kind of plot summary that I have told her what it is, I will tell her to do a beat sheet, because obviously she's familiar with that book and knows what that, what I mean by that. And the first time I used it, I told her to use it based on that book. And so she will spit out a beat sheet for me, which is very, very, very loosely my book in summary, for chapters, the beats for chapters and so forth. I will say I don't end up following that, because when you're writing, as you know, sometimes your mind goes elsewhere, or you change things, or what you thought was going to work didn't work. So anyway, that's very loosely how I start my book, from start to idea to the time I sit down and start writing. Once I have the beat sheet, I sit down and just start giving birth to that baby. I hope this helps.